around like bringing to management like the idea of the apocryphal Steve Jobs sweater, right? The idea was that like he wore the same sweater or turtleneck or whatever it was all the time because he didn't want the mental overhead of picking out his wardrobe. I think the future of tech for managers could be something similar, where it's like, I don't want to have to keep a running mental list of, did I do this thing that I said I would do for this person?
Welcome to UpTech Report. This is our Apply Tech series. UpTech Report is sponsored by TerraLeap. Learn how to leverage the power of video at terraleap.io. Today, I'm excited to be joined by my guest, Adam Berke, who's based in California. He's the co-founder and CEO at WorkPatterns. Welcome, Adam. Good to have you on.
Hi, yeah, thanks so much. Now,
WorkPatterns, if I understand correctly, is a people management platform that really is focused on helping improve team communication and accountability. Adam, take me back. Like, when did you actually start to care about how we manage people and wanted to build a platform? It wasn't with this venture suddenly, all right, I have it. It's probably from your previous experience. Like, what were you seeing? What was the challenge you saw? You're like, I need to solve this.
Yeah, well, I mean, the challenge was very much a problem I was struggling with myself and probably still haven't fully solved to this day. So it's always useful to be your own best customer in a way. But yeah, my previous company was in the marketing technology space, so pretty far afield. It was a company called AdRoll. Now it's called NextRoll. I was there from 3 people up to 700 employees, and 700. So yeah, and in global, and so saw and experienced a lot of different challenges, both for myself personally and for the organization, as we went through those different phases and had to scale and had to evolve. And yeah, personally had, struggles as I evolved from being sort of a, Swiss Army knife, product-y minded co-founder, entrepreneur type, who is more of an individual contributor, obviously, with, just a handful of people. You don't have a lot of managers. I'd been a manager before, but then, becoming a manager again, and then managing at scale, and then becoming an executive where you're managing other managers. Each of those leaps has its own set of challenges. And frankly, by the end of that 10-year journey, you're almost spending all of your time on how can we operate more effectively? It's a bit trite, but like, how can I unblock the people on my team? How can I help them do their jobs better? It truly is the nature of the job as a good executive. And my little product insights are no longer that helpful nor welcome at the later stages. It's not like the early was like, oh, how about we do this? How about we do that? Like, and so it becomes all about how do you operate this machine of a company. And we, did that through policies and, people and cobbled together systems. But there was nothing that just guided the day-to-day thought process and work of a manager and their direct report. There was stuff for like formal performance reviews or like quarterly goal setting, but all of that kind of fell flat in the organization, to be honest. Like, people on the front lines would tend to view those tools as a sideshow. And, I think that was because the customer for those tools is an HR people team. And so as someone who builds software and, is building a software product, you're going to make product decisions based on who is paying your invoices. And if your invoices are being paid by HR, you're going to respond to their feature request first. And that just, ultimately felt problematic in terms of if we were going to really solve this problem of, the product that I would have wanted to help guide my relationships day to day and week to week with my managers, and something that I could give to, with my direct reports, and something that I could give to my managers that would help them implement a consistent system with their direct reports. It needed to be built for them as the primary user and customer. And so that's kind of how we came to WorkPatterns. That's kind of how we came to this business model, which is a bit different than other stuff in our space. And what we're focused on today.
So your history and your story with AdRoll being in there, you said 10 years, I think you said. No,
Yeah,
12 years, 12 years, come to 12 years.
10 years, it's 2 as an advisoor, so not operational.
Advisor there. Going from 3 people to 700, and I can only mention the number of successful entrepreneurs, that transition is not easy. How do you learn to lead people? I mean, that's the success of any organization is leading people. And for those that want to learn more about the journey, stick around for part 2, where we're going to dig in more of Adam's founder's journey. But HR tech, there's a lot out there. There's a lot of technology for HR professionals, but you're trying to do it from a different approach, actually create a human resource platform, but not for the HR people, but
I mean, I don't think of ourselves as HR tech, because we don't sell to HR. Maybe one way to, one little way to think about it is like, an HR product that managers actually want to use. That's maybe a tagline for the website. But yeah, I mean, I think a lot of HR tech is built to, like I said, check boxes for HR teams, and not designed with the frontline user in mind. And so we just kind of flip that model on its head. So we almost think of it more, borrowing a lot more from like the productivity software space, with a people management orientation.
Interesting. Now, your name itself, WorkPatterns, obviously has a concept behind it, the purpose for it. Can you break that down?
Yeah, well, I mean, it is the most important thing as a manager is to have a intentional system, a set of patterns, as it were, that you guide and operate by. It's sort of the pulse of your operations, and we start at what we view as like the atomic unit of the operations of a company, which we see as the one-on-one between a manager and the direct report. It all kind of like that is like the most granular relationship within an organization, and is often the starting point for other larger initiatives that might end up being, strategic priorities, larger cross-functional projects, etc. But almost everything starts as a conversation between a manager and a direct report. And so that's where we focus. That's our starting point. And basically, just to put it in like the simplest terms, like we replace that like running Google Doc or like Word doc that everyone has with their manager with a purpose-built tool that guides the weekly one-on-one meeting. That's the starting point of WorkPatterns. So, because we're purpose-built for that use case, we can add a lot of stuff that makes that experience much better. We have templates. We have recommended topics that you should be discussing on a regular cadence. This was always the mental overhead of a manager. Have I given this person feedback recently? Have we had a career discussion in X amount of time? How about that thing that we talked about last week that I said I would do for them? Did that get like buried in a Google Doc that I don't check in between meetings? Or did we actually capture an action item that has an owner and a due date and a notification to remind me to actually do it? And then a way that we come back to the meeting to see what got done and what didn't get done. And so, all of those things are built into the product, as well as integrating with other tools that people use. The number one thing people that we hear, I don't know about the number one thing, but a big problem that people have is just proliferation of tools and like what's going on in all of them. And so bringing that information into the one-on-one meeting automatically is a key focus of ours. So is there something going on in Jira that you should want to talk about? Is there something going on in Salesforce, an account that you want to talk about? So bringing that, having an easy way to help managers and the direct reports prepare for that one-on-one, have all the salient information in one place, and then if important stuff comes out of the one-on-one, for it to find its way into the appropriate system as well with, a simple button click. So yeah, if there is, I hope this should go into Jira as a task, great. But you probably don't want to put like an informal discussion topic into Jira. That's just not what it's for. So we view ourselves like higher top of the stack of those types of ideas, a place to get things out of your head during the week as they come up and handle them either asynchronously or during the one-on-one meeting.
So most likely a manager, before using a service like yours, they're using a Google Doc, just a running Google Doc or a Word doc of let's just throw our ideas in here. That's most likely what they're using before a solution like
90% of the time, yeah.
Or
nothing, or paper.
or nothing, or their head. They're like, well, what did we talk about last week? What should I talk about?
Yeah. Or do you have anything? Do I have anything? Oh, I'm about to I'm running from one meeting to another. Have I done it? Who am I talking to next? So yeah, we like to try to automate a lot of that preparation work as well.
Automation is a wonderful thing. And the purpose for technology, right, is to make our lives simpler. Your approach with this is, I think, bottoms up. So you're actually like, any manager could just sign up for their immediate team with 2 people, 1 person, 3 people, and start using this.
That's right. Yeah, free to try. And yeah, from a business model perspective, we thought the more bottoms up approach better aligns us with our customers. Like I said, I think the problem with a lot of these tools in the past is that they're designed for a different customer. They're designed for HR, and that's why they end up falling flat in the organization often and viewed as a sideshow. So we wanted to design for the end user and to deliver enough value that a manager actually wants to buy it. Usually what ends up happening is it cascades up and a director will pay for it, or that kind of thing once it comes, if we're adding enough value for that. But it's a free trial, similar to, Slack's model. You can try it for free, use it for a smaller group. Then as you add features, use it more robustly. That's our business model.
Got it. Taking a step back for a second, I'm trying to getting in my head as a manager. I am a manager as well, but in today's environment is most commonly everyone's hybrid or remote. And so using technology now is just a normal course. But there's people that probably are not used to this. They're not used to having to work remote. Yeah. And we're going to come back to sometimes in person, sometimes remote. I'm curious from your perspective as your customers, as managers, what you've seen the conversations of, how do you properly scale good remote work? What do the best practices look like? Do you have any perspectives that you've seen and are building into your own platform to make sure good work happens with your direct reports?
Yeah, well, we started the company in 2018. So, prior, some of these remote hybrid work wasn't even a word at that point. But remote was certainly starting. It was sort of like one of those things that this makes a lot of sense, but how do we feel about people being anywhere? And if we can't see them, how will that work? What about water cooler conversations and all that, which, we still are, people still are concerned about today, and we're figuring out on the fly. I would say, just from that point of view, we were building the product and solving the problem regardless of the work arrangement. And frankly, the systems that people had in place when we were all working in the same place weren't good then either. People didn't, people had this Google Doc then and over relied on serendipitous encounters in the hallway, or, if something comes to mind, I'll just DM them, or worse, maybe worse, depending on people's preferences, drop by their desk. And that's just a very disruptive style of management. And so, in broad strokes, again, it goes back to this notion of patterns. That's what, name of the company, but intentional patterns and a cadence by which you operate. So people need focus time. And that's been one of the great upsides of remote. There aren't as many distractions. People know, people aren't getting inundated with, or, now the distractions have moved at least, but our goal is to minimize those and move people to a more asynchronous way of operating. And to do that and to unlock the benefits of remote and hybrid, you do need to be more intentional with your systems. And by that, I mean simple stuff like, what is the cadence? How are decisions made? And what is the cadence for airing certain issues? Do I just scream about it on Slack, or do I capture it somewhere and know that it will be addressed in the context of a set conversation? For us, we're very oriented around one-on-ones, but also other recurring group meetings. So having these cadences and systems are really helpful. We view it as the restraints can unlock creativity and productivity in many ways. It's I heard someone else kind of made the analogy around jazz music, to improvise and whatnot. You still need to know kind of what key you're playing in and all that kind of stuff, so you can push up against those boundaries. And that's where interesting stuff can happen. But you kind of need to have systems and restraints to operate within that can then unlock flexibility in around that system. So, people like predictability. People like to know what is expected of them and when, and then they can operate within those lines. So that we view that as like a good principle to live by, no matter how you're going to end up operating. So yeah, when we can talk about like other specific things that we're seeing, but like frankly, it's a laboratory right now. Like there is nobody who knows how this is all going to pan out, and it's going to be really different for different size companies, different industries, different, there's just so many variables at play here. So, I think anybody who purports to be like an expert at hybrid work, like no one is an expert at hybrid work yet. Like we barely started doing it. So like I won't pretend to be that. And I think going into it with the overarching notion of like, if this is going to work, we need to be more intentional than we used to be. We need to be a little bit more structured than we used to be. We need to document things, and we need to have like a system that people understand. That's going to be a common thread across all of this to be successful with it.
As one who's managed people, you were actually leading a company that was 700 people. Can you even think of any times where you failed, a lesson learned that for another manager, they could just get some insight from? Any stories are powerful. So any come to mind?
I mean, constantly. I don't think, again, and I don't think I've cracked this at all. And, so I'm sort of always putting it up against a lens, of like, am I really solving my own problem right now? Like, is this actually helping me be a better manager? I think, I'll give a little hint on, on a couple of the things that I've failed on, and that I don't think we've like hit the mark on yet, as a product. Like one of the most high value, but high difficulty things to do as a manager is giving feedback, right? Like that's an uncomfortable, it can be uncomfortable. Some people are uncomfortably comfortable with it. But in general, if you have empathy and, giving direct and constructive feedback to someone, can be nerve-wracking. It can be easy to kick the can down the road, and then stuff ends up blowing up down the line. And so, I've fallen victim to this all sorts of times where it's like, oh, I'll just let that slide. I'll talk about it later. It's not that big a deal. As a manager though, that's really problematic, because it's not just you that's affecting, it's all of those person's teammates. It's other people in the organization. And so those issues are rippling. And so, yeah, you really gotta take it on yourself to be giving regular feedback. And that's, frankly, one of the problems that we're trying to solve as a company, where we're trying to move away from these bureaucratic and sporadic performance reviews that happen once a quarter or whatever the case may be, or maybe even twice a year, where you can only remember what happened in the last week. And if you're giving them feedback on something they did 2 months ago, like what use is it then? And so, yeah, I am trying to, as a manager, and I'm trying to guide in our product, is lighter weight. How do we take friction out of giving lightweight but consistent feedback? And not to tease it too much, but there have definitely been some breakthroughs in natural language processing and AI copy generation that we think can be helpful in giving suggestions for how to phrase certain pieces of feedback to managers, because it's easier to edit something and add your own context and tone than it is to start from a blank screen and a flashing cursor. So that's kind of the direction what's that?
Forthcoming. So it's soon
forthcoming. This is the type of stuff that we're trying to work on, because again, going back to, stuff I've struggled with, it is that. And if I could, help me out, let me give you a couple words that are coming to mind about this person, and then give me something to, that other great managers have put together that reflect those words.
That would be powerful. Because what's funny is pops in my head earlier on when I started business, and I started hiring people. My wife got me this book of like 100 500 things you can say in awkward or difficult situations with your teammates or something. And it was like, prompt and potential answer. And it was a great resource, but I always forgot what the book was and I couldn't look it up. And I was like, dang, I wish I had that. And honestly, that'd be powerful. It's like, all right, I got to give them some feedback. What are some, okay, this would be an interesting solution. Yeah, that's one way to say it. Right in your weekly context. Wow.
Exactly. So there's a VC firm called Emergence Capital, which has talked about this notion of coaching networks, and that we're very interested in, and we think we fit into this thesis, if you will, where there are ways that like AI can work alongside humans to make humans more human, if that makes sense. And so, we view ourselves in that thesis around like, okay, given what we know about what's going on in this relationship, how can we guide the manager to do the right things to provide high value to the direct report and vice versa?
I think that's a beautiful use case for technology and I literally just finished another interview. The company was Loris. They do real-time coaching for customer support agents. It's actually, they're giving same idea. Suggestions, but now for a manager to have that support, like what should I say in this situation based off of what they're experiencing, Precisely. That could really takes a newer manager, someone maybe not managed people before, and they don't have a lot of formal training. This could be a great resource for them to get better.
That's such a common story. Yeah, it's such a common story too. Like that's what happens in organizations, and I think there's a whole different branch we could go down around like organizational design and whatnot, which I'm no expert necessarily, but I've seen a few things, and one common pattern again is often that high performing individual contributors get promoted into management, and the thing that they were great at it goes out the window. Yeah, and so and it's obvious when you say it, but like it just happens all the time, and it's not always acknowledged. And those people are kind of moved into management and just like, oh, help this group of people do the thing that you're so great at. Well, how you do that is an art and a skill, and that needs to be honed and isn't necessarily the same as doing the thing itself. Very true in engineering management, very true in sales management, where like an engineering manager is different than being like a world-class developer themselves. Sometimes those things overlap, sometimes they don't. Same thing in sales. The top salespeople are not always the best like machine builders when it comes to building a sales organization.
Pontificating here for a moment of just the future of technology used for managers or being able to equip and help managers do their job better. What comes to your mind of where are we headed? What is possible? Like if you could wave a magic wand and have that technology in existence, and maybe it's on your roadmap, I don't know, but curious of what comes to your mind.
I think it comes back to this guiding principle of being more intentional and having structure. But that structure, the more the technology can take the thinking out of it, I have this bad analogy. Well, you tell me if it's bad. I think it's ridiculous, but it sort of conveys the point around like bringing to management like the idea of the apocryphal Steve Jobs sweater, right? The idea was that like he wore the same sweater or turtleneck or whatever it was all the time because he didn't want the mental overhead of picking out his wardrobe. I think the future of tech for managers could be something similar, where it's like I don't want to have to keep a running mental list of did I do this thing that I said I would do for this person, let alone am I doing the things proactively for each person at the right cadence for where we are in their life cycle of me as their manager. Am I doing the right thing early on with them? Am I doing the right thing after our relationship matures? Taking into account all the research and whatever we know about organizational psychology, leadership, all of these best practices, and giving them to the manager and guiding them more proactively so that they don't have to be using all of these mental cycles to think, am I doing this? Am I doing that? Have I done this? Have I done that? Getting the appropriate like nudges at the right time to do those things, and ideally taking friction out of the highest value activities making those habits, easy, and, all the atomic principles, atomic habits stuff around building new habits and things of that nature. So making great management habits more intuitive, more obvious, and more easy.
The Steve Jobs sweater analogy, I can dig it. So that we don't have to. We don't have to think as hard. We can put our energy more towards the vision of the team of where we're headed, not just what are those regular cadence items that we need to do that keep things humming and less friction. We could rely on
a finite pool of energy on any given day, and if you're spinning it up on one thing, you're not spending it on another. And managers, by the way, managers often maintain a lot of quote unquote individual contributor work that they're responsible for. That might be putting together a presentation for a leadership meeting or something like that. They still need to get to that work. Meanwhile, they're needing to do all these other things for their team. And so the more you can kind of make that predictable, take the friction out of it, let them put their energy to that presentation, to that IC work, to actually having the conversation with their direct report versus some of this other logistical and administrative overhead and the kind of cadences. Don't worry about that. That'll just kind of happen, or you'll at least be reminded. I think we can really help people out by doing that.
Well, for those that want to get some tech to help you not have to worry or think as much about those repeatable items, you can head over to WorkPatterns.com, and looks like you can try it for free and be able to explore it. And for those that want to hear more though about Adam's journey as a founder, the second, third company, stick around for part 2 where we're going to dive deeper into that. So thanks again for your time, Adam. Appreciate it hearing the story of Work Patterns, and we'll see you guys on the next episode of UpTech Report. Have you seen a company using AI, machine learning, or other technology to transform the way we live, work, and do business? Go to uptechreport.com and let us know.